Hey everyone, Kev here. Today I'm going to do the front shocks and the steering stabilizer on my Crossfire. Last video I did the rear shocks, and weather's getting much better and this car is still up on jack stands for the winter. So it's time to get this project wrapped up and get this car back on the road. So I'm going to go over the part numbers and the steps necessary to do the front shocks. It's actually not a bad job at all because it's not like a McPherson strut setup. You don't have to use coil spring collapsers or anything like that. It's just basically doing shocks. So let's take a look at the part numbers and the tools needed and we'll get started. All right, like I said, coil spring is separate on this front suspension and the shock is right here. And it just goes up through the fender well. And at the bottom, you've just got two 16 millimeter that you'll need. It's a nut and bolt setup. So pretty much just a socket and a wrench or an electric driver. I'll take the bottoms out, and on the top, there's a rubber cap that covers, or a plastic cap that covers the top of the shock as it comes up through. So I just used a little door panel tool to pry the bottom of that off, pops right off. And then you'll need a 17 millimeter for this nut. I'm gonna hit this with an impact and hopefully just spin that right off the shaft without the shaft spinning as well. But if it does, there is some flat spots on here so that you can hold the shaft steady and use a wrench instead to back that nut off. As far as part numbers are concerned, the Bilsteins for the front on the Crossfire, 24-109987, and then the steering stabilizer is 18-140651. And we're going to replace that as well. All right, let's get started. All right, so here's the 17 millimeter nut in question. I'm just using a impact with a 17 millimeter deep on it. Let's see what happens. It does look like it did come up some, but then the shaft started to spin a little bit. Let's see. I don't know if I'm going to be able to grab that or not like this. Nope, it's just spinning. So we are going to have to grab the top of this and hold it while we use a wrench on the bottom part here. So let me go grab the appropriate tools and I'll be right back. All right, I just put a needle nose pliers on the top of the shaft there where those flat spots were. The wrench, you got to use the open end of it to get down under there. It's just a matter of backing it off the rest of the way. Just a little bit at a time just because of the stuff that's in the way down here. And the impact did bring it almost all the way to the top. And yes, I know it's putting a little bit of pressure here, but it is not much at all. This is not super tight. There is a little bit of tension. And to be honest, I don't know how much the shock is keeping the front suspension up a little bit. So I'm just gonna throw a floor jack under the lower control arm and take a little bit of the tension off. Not that I think it's gonna slam down hard or anything, but I'd rather just err on the side of caution. So I'm gonna go grab a floor jack and just support that a little bit and then take this nut the rest of the way off. Alrighty, I'll get the rest of this off the rest of the way here. Should be pretty close. Oh, look at that. This, yeah, that shaft's not even spinning anymore. See if I can zip it off the rest of the way with this. There we go. Alrighty, you're gonna want to hold on to the washer in this upper bushing here for sure, because that's gonna this is in great shape. It's just gonna drop right back down in there once we get the new one up and through. So now let's move to the bottom and get those 16 millimeters out. All right, so as you can see, as I lowered the floor jack, the top of the shock did come down through that hole. So I'm glad I supported the lower control arm and put some tension on it. Because then as I slowly lowered the floor jack, this dropped right down out of the hole. So hopefully that means it's gonna be easy to put back together. So now I'm just gonna tackle those two 16 millimeters right there. And on the other side, right down here. Alrighty, let me get some tools on those. We'll get started. All right, how's this for some perspective? Got the phone on the ground looking up into the bottom of the suspension. Here is the 16 millimeter nut that you've got to secure while you undo the bolt head on the other side. So, wrench in place. Got the socket on the other side. I'll just back that right off. Be a little bit faster with a battery operated ratchet or a impact, but those batteries are charging right now, so we're going old school. Just spin this off pretty quickly. Alrighty. And just like that, nut and bolt. Alrighty, now I gotta wrestle this out of here a little bit, I think. Shouldn't be too bad. Nah, it pulls right up. Move that up to the side. And now, that whole assembly is off. So obviously the installation process is going to be the reverse. I'm just going to drop the new one in, put the nut and bolt through, and then we'll jack up the lower control arm with the floor jack to put the top shaft up through the fender well. So let's tackle that next. So here's the original shock from 2004 and the new Bilstein. You can see that the original has collapsed a little bit. Not a big deal. This little rubber cap right here needs to be moved over to the new shock because the new shock doesn't have a rubber cap right there. But it does come with the new nut for the top. And so I'm gonna go ahead and just move this cap over and then get this up and into the lower mounting position first and get that 16 millimeter nut and bolt set up back through. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So I should point out that the rubber cap on the old shock is actually also the upper bushing. The new shock, you can see this cup area here. So that's got to go on and seat down in here. And then get the edges all the way around, because that's going to be the actual bushing at the top of the fender well up here. So that is all in place now. Put in. Now let's go ahead and drop the shock down into its mounting location. Let's start by getting the top up in there first, and then trying to feed the bottom through over to where it's got to go. I do wish that the Bilsteins came with some sort of a strap mechanism that was, you know, holding the shock in a compressed position, because it is obviously, as a new shock, it's a little bit more difficult to collapse, you know, with your bare hands and get up into the mount. So I'm probably going to struggle with that for just a second, so I'll be right back. All right, the new shock is down. It just needs to be tightened up, and it is up through the hole in the top. So it's just going to need to be tightened as well once I take the floor jack and get some tension off of this. You may recall I just said that I wish they came with some sort of a strap that held them in a compressed position. Well, I remembered that I had a couple of pretty big wire ties in my toolbox, and so I kind of made something that did that. And I was able to put one end around the top where the shaft is, and then turn it upside down, compress it, and pop this over the bottom. And that held it in a much, shorter state, so that I could just drop it right in there. And then I just held this end, up above the hole and popped the wire tie off, and it just dropped right down into the bracket and allowed me to get the nut through. So that worked out just fine. All right, got the lower control arm supported with a block of wood and the floor jack. And the top part of the sock shaft is already coming up through the hole. You just want to be careful as you feed it up through that the lip here where the threads are, you don't get that caught on the hole itself that comes up through the shock tower. Just make sure you keep this centered as you come up through. And then there's another little lip in there that you can kind of see there. So we're going to watch that one too as we bring up the floor jack. Yeah, that's coming right through. And then once you kind of see that it's not coming up anymore, you can just double check under here in the fender well to make sure it's sealing right up at the top where that upper bushing is. Now you just got to grab the bushing, the washer, and the new nut. The Bilsteins come with a new 17mm nut, and it's got the insert, that makes it kind of a locking mechanism. So let's hit that with the impact and see if I need to use the wrench or not. Seems like it. Alrighty. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the needle nose vise again, get it on here, and just use the wrench to tighten that down the rest of the way. So I'll be right back. And then a little bit at a time, we'll just snug this down, and then we'll put the cap back on. Be right back. All right, once that nut is tightened all the way down to the bottom, I'm just going to put the cap back on that protects the threads. Put that back. And then we'll just lower the tension off the control arm. Here we go. All right, so that's how easy it is to do the front shock on the Crossfire. I'm going to go ahead and do the other side. I won't film that whole process because it's exactly the same as this side. And once I get to the steering stabilizer, I'll do a little bit on that. But for now, things are going back together good. Of course, the rears are already done. Had my wheels refinished. Had some minor curb rash on a couple of them. So a friend of mine is in the wheel refinishing business, and so he took care of these for me. Cleaned up the barrels and everything, so these will look nice when it all gets back together. All right, so that's it for now. I'll check back in as soon as we start the steering stabilizer. So the driver's side is done, but I thought I would kind of just time it, without doing video and stopping and moving things around and all that. Just having all the tools already laid out, I decided to time how long does it actually take to change the shock. And so from start to finish, I set the stopwatch on my phone, hit start, walked over, did the shock, and walked back and hit stop. And it was 10 minutes and 4 seconds from the time I walked over and started it till the time it was all wrapped up. So this is actually a really quick and easy job, and it's something that only requires a couple of nuts and bolts. So this is something you definitely can do on your own. All right, on to the steering stabilizer. All right, we're on to the steering stabilizer. I already gave the part number on that, but here's the Bilstein replacement part for it. And it's located from side to side here. Let's see if we can focus here. That would be helpful. Alrighty. From right here, and it goes across to the other side. There's a mounting point on that side and a mounting point on this side. This is just again, just like the shock, a 16 millimeter nut and a 16 millimeter head on this bolt that comes through. And this side, actually, you can kind of get to without even getting under the car. You can just come straight through here. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect this side, and then I'll go over to the other side and see what we need to do to disconnect that one. But this also should be a relatively quick and easy job to do. Let's see. All right, so I just slid a 16 millimeter wrench in on the top, and I'm just going to use a 16 millimeter electric ratchet here. Let's see if this will come right out easily or not. Yep, easy enough. All right, so there's that. There's this. Just slide that right up and out. Oh, alrighty. What do we have there? Oh, so the steering box has got this that comes out. And so it looks like I'm just going to have to turn the wheel maybe to the right so that this bolt can come the rest of the way out. Let me do that real quick. Let's see. Alrighty, see if that's... No, that definitely was not enough. Huh. Alright. Let's try the left, because that did not go far enough past. There we go. All right, that gets the bolt out of the way, and then this will just come right out of there. So we'll go over to the other side and see how that one is attached, and go from there. All right, over here on the passenger side, it looks like that this end of the steering stabilizer is just a 16 millimeter bolt head, and it just goes right up into this right here. So there is no nut on the back side. So I'm just going to hit that and see if it comes right out or not. Hopefully it will. Not with this one. Definitely. Let's get a wrench on it. Let's see if maybe it just needs to be cracked free. There we go. Definitely relatively tight. I had my ratcheting one here with me. Anyway, I won't bore you with the rest of this. I'll stop filming and take that the rest of the way out. All right, that literally took 2 seconds. Alrighty, so now we got the steering stabilizer free on both ends. Just put it right through here. And we'll get the new one. to be extended some, but not a big deal. We can make that fit on the other end. Alrighty, feed that up through here. Then figure out a way to hold it to get this back up in. A matter of, where are we? Right here. Just get that started. Let's see if this will put it up in. All right, good and tight. I'll head over to the other side and reattach that. Alrighty, back on the driver's side of the car. And pretty much this just needs to be extended enough to get back into its bracket. Pull this way. We've got the nut and bolt. There we go. And nut on the bottom. And I'll just hold the top again with this 16. Get it in there. There it is. And then we'll just zip this up. Alrighty. And that's how easy it is to do the steering stabilizer. Alrighty. All right, I'm gonna pick up a couple of tools and then we'll wrap this up. All right, just a quick wrap up on the Crossfire shocks and all that. Super easy job to do. When you don't have to deal with spring compressors, it really is just nuts and bolts with basic hand tools that pretty much anybody has who does any mechanical work at all. I imagine the rears and the fronts and the steering stabilizer could all be done in an hour and a half from the time you pull it into the garage to the time you pull it out. Easy car to work on. I think some people look at the Crossfire and they think, oh, it's a 20-something-year-old Mercedes. It's going to be a nightmare to work on. It's actually not. It's actually pretty easy to work on. Other people will look at it and say, oh, it's a Chrysler, they're crap. And that's not really true either. There's a lot of Chryslers that are not good, but the Crossfire is basically a Mercedes SLK built in Germany at the Carmen plant, and it's a pretty solid platform. I'm kind of surprised that they really have not done anything in value. You know, they're relatively fun cars to drive. They're not exclusive with hard to find parts and all that. I don't know. I'm gonna do a video on the car, you know, about the car itself, my buying experience, road test, kind of go over the Chrysler Crossfire in general. It's the first one I've ever owned, and so I'll share more information then. But as far as simple things like this, basic maintenance things, you know, that car's a 2004, it's 2026 now, still had the original shocks in it, original steering stabilizer, and it drove pretty nicely, but I'm expecting with these Bilsteins that I put in, should really improve the ride and make it even more enjoyable to drive. So that's going to wrap up the shock and steering stabilizer video. Subscribe, like, whatever you got to do. so that you get notified for the next video. I still have a couple more things to do. I need to finish up a couple things on the interior and get the wheels and tires back on, and then we'll do a video on the whole car itself. I mean, I bought this car in November of 25 and didn't really get a chance to drive it a lot and formulate a good opinion on it and do a video on it. So I put it in the garage up on jack stands for the winter, and I've been picking away at little maintenance items, and but now it's weather's nicer. It's time to get it back out on the road and do a proper video on the car itself. So thanks for sticking around this long, and hopefully it helped to some degree, and we'll see you on the next video.